Mezi, batla mezi mo.
Yeah, le nna metsi nka thabela.
O ya sekolo Sesotho qala.
Kancane ngithi nje
Kancane. Welcome to the virtual literary festival hosted by Inside Education Foundation here in Midrand. My name is Lucas Ledwaba. I'm an author and a journalist, and I'm surrounded by authors here and fellow journalists. So we are going to have a very informal discussion about very important issues. The theme for this gathering is our stories, our heritage, exploring alternatives to storytelling. So with me here, on my right, Sihle Kwabe is the author of this wonderful book called The Resurrection. Very haunting title, sir. And another haunting title here by Immaculate Gindi on my right. Immaculate, you look scared.
No,
Relax.
I'm relaxed.
Yeah. The title of the book is In a Killer's Shadow. And I must say, the cover looks haunting as well. You can see this book. I mean, the cover and the word killer already says you are in for some hectic reading. Well done on the book. And then Hosea Rampegwa is the author of another haunting book. Gifted, Hunted, and Haunted. But this is his first book.
Yeah.
The second book, where he talks about his hashtag war now, where people are asking him, when are you getting married? He even, you know, it depressed him so much, he even wrote a book about it. It's called Wait to be Seated. And then, his third book, Yellow Bone with a Black Heart. What is a yellow bone? What is a yellow bone?
It's a fair light and yeah, a woman who's fair and very light.
So
in
you,
the context of
so that makes you a brown bone.
a yellow one.
Okay. I wonder where this title comes from. Yellow bone.
Yellow
This
bone,
term,
black
yellow
heart.
bone, where does it come from?
Interestingly, somebody did a thesis on that.
On yellow bone.
Yeah,
Okay.
from University of, was it Valos or UNISA, one of the two.
Yeah.
And they have a PhD by just talking about the yellow bones in from Katlehong. Someone from Katlehong here. Yeah, that's basically.
I see.
Yeah, it's my neighbor.
Closer to it's the first club, closer to
From
No.
Florence.
Oh,
So
okay.
my name is.
I'm asking about the term yellow bone because it sounds offensive. When I was growing up, I was called Le Bushman because I was very short and I had very curly hair, Muriri wa dikgobe.
Yeah.
And people called me Le Bushman, and because I was light in complexion, I think I still am.
No,
And
this
I
one
was-
is dealt with.
And I was called Le Bushman. And it made me so angry. I don't know how people who are fair skinned feel about being called yellow bone, but we'll talk about that. Joining us is a book critic, journalist, and book addict as well. Roland Simbi Mutaung, I'm sorry. The Mutaungs are going through a very difficult time. Kaiser Chiefs. I hope you are not
No, I'm pirates.
pirates. Okay, so you'll be smiling tomorrow. Yeah. So, colleagues, thank you for honoring this invite. I think it's an important discussion that needs to be had about alternatives to publishing and also about our stories. When you look back 40 years ago, 30 years ago even 20 years ago, it was so difficult to get published. People sent manuscripts, there were very few publishers who even didn't understand our stories as African people. So there are so many stories that were rejected. There are so many manuscripts that were put in a box under the bed, a fryhead. Yeah, so many stories that never got to be told. Very important stories. But now we are living in an era where we are able to tell our own stories. We can even publish our own stories. Sihle is published by Kwela Books.
Yes, it is quite a book.
Immaculate spent a fortune to publish her own book. Hosea runs the Mkhweti Publishers. Mkhweti it's a Sepedi or a Northern Sotho word for champion. Mkhweti. Yes. So maybe let's talk about, first of all, the motivation. I'll start with you, Immaculate. The motivation behind telling such a compelling story. I read this book in 2 days. And while I was reading the book, I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't listen to the news or anything else. I wanted to finish this book and find out where exactly is this story going to end. And it's a very personal story. So for a first-time published author to write such a deeply personal story, take us through that journey and tell the audience also who you are, where you come from.
Thank you, Mr. Lidwaba. My name
Call
is
me Styles.
Nice.
Mr. Dwawa is like an insurance salesperson.
My name is Immaculate Tsindi. I am originally from the Northwest in a small town called Mahikeng.
Are you from Northwest or Moputatswana? You were born before Northwest.
Yes,
You are
I
from
was
Moputatswana.
born more than 40 years.
So you are
back.
from Moputatswana?
I'm from Moputatswana
Oh, okay.
before the transition of the new South Africa. And I'm currently residing in Polokwane in the Limpopo province.
Northern Transvaal.
Yes. Well, it's a personal story, and I'm happy that I'm having people that contributed to the final product of this, which is you, to be specific, and Hosea, to be specific. You know, as personal as it is, I struggled to get people on board to give me a quality production. But you spoke of a powerful cover image. I always say with all the interviews that I have made, because the first thing that they see is that, okay, the book cover is something else, and credit goes to this gentleman in front of me, Hosea Rampeko. He is the mastermind behind this cover, and a mastermind behind the title after he had read the manuscript. And I'm grateful to be having both of you who inspired and told me to keep telling my story the way I wanted to. But what motivated me is I wanted to document my story my own way. And talking about the depression, suicidal attempts that I've tried to commit 3 times but still failed, rejection from my father's family, and ultimately being the woman that I am today, But most importantly, I wanted to document it for my kids, my 4 children. And I also wanted to make it a point that I inspire others. If I was able to go through what I went through, the rejection, which is, I'm not sure about the stats, but many South African children grow without their fathers, and kids are made to pay for the sins of their parents. So I wanted somebody that had gone through a similar journey as me to say, you still have it in you to make something out of yourself. You still have it in you, even if you have tried to commit suicide several times, even though you'll always experience trigger. If I was able to walk this journey, you too can, but it's not an easy journey. It goes with a strong support structure and your determination to change your life for the better.
Thank you. We'll come back to the book, but so the book in a way was a journey of healing for you.
Definitely, correct.
You went the self-publishing route. Did you approach any publishers prior to deciding, look, let me just tell my story, my own way, publish it myself, and own my story?
Yes, I did. I went to your traditional big publishers, and the terms were not favoring me. And on 2 occasions, Hosea had organized an online workshop where he had about more than 200 writers or authors who wanted to publish themselves. So in that workshop, that took almost 4 hours, with the research that I have done with your traditional publishers and with what he had experienced, it then made it easier for me to decide which route I wanted to take. So that's why I went with self-publishing.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Sihle,
Yes.
you wrote a book that is published by the so-called traditional publishers, Kwela Books.
Yes.
And I read extracts that you sent through, and I did a little bit of research about the book, what people are saying about the book as well.
Yes.
Quite a very powerful cover here. It looks like one of those crime thrillers that once you buy it at the bookstore and maybe you are at the airport, you start reading, you even miss your flight. Because it's just, the story just grabs you.
Yeah, I've heard people say that.
Now, I'm reading here, you are writing about a guy that was killed, and this guy apparently had a stash of diamonds somewhere. Now, all these men are coming to the widow to comfort her, but it looks like they're looking for these diamonds.
Yes.
Tell us about the motivation first, before writing, the motivation for writing this book. But also, people want to know, who's Sihle Qwabe?
No.
Mina, when I first saw the name Sihle Qwabe, I thought, this must be one of the incomings from Umlazi hostel.
A cabin name Sihle, that should be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start by who's Sihle Qwabe. Just give you a quick rundown. So Sihle Qwabe is originally from KZN. I was born in the KwaZulu-Natal province, in a small village from the town Engutu. That's where I was born. So I stayed there, I think, until I finished my primary school, and then I came to Joburg. I did high school this side. I came to Joburg, and
Osaban was.
no, they normally do that. Our parents
Okay.
normally do that. They let you stay with your grandparents when you're still a kid, but as soon as you grow up, they're like, okay,
Okay,
so
okay.
let him come this side. He might have better opportunities.
No, I just want to make sure that you're not running away.
from Kamis. No, I was not. I was not. I just came for better opportunities. I came for greener pastures. And then I finished my high school in Johannesburg. And
So
then-
you said you came for greener pastures in Joburg.
Yes.
But KwaZulu Natal is much greener than Joburg.
That's the irony.
Anyway.
That is the irony. But we do come this side for greener pastures.
Yeah.
So I finished my high school in Joburg. I went to college. I graduated a diploma in PR. And then after that, I struggled to find a job. I just couldn't find a job. And then I ended up working in a retail store. So at first it was very frustrating. You know, when you're a young person, you believe you're educated and you thought your life was finally changing. Things are happening for you and it seems they are not. So you get depressed, you get so frustrated. Then after a while, after a couple of years, I remember I was in Johannesburg, Park Station. And then I just picked up randomly. So this guy was selling these second-hand books outside. And then I picked up Cry Beloved Country.
Wow.
Just randomly paid for that book. I went home and then I started reading. And from there I was gone.
And put down a book.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. From there I was gone. My life just changed. I started reading. So after a while, I had this urge. I started feeling like I might have a story in me. Let me try telling my own story. Then I started writing. I think I finished the first draft of The Resurrection around 2018. And then around 2020, I met this lady. Her name was Ali Stein. So I met that lady, and then she saw potential in it. So she's the person that introduced me to Kwela.
Oh, I see.
And then when she introduced me to Kwela, Kwela said the same thing. They like, there is something about it, but we feel like you still have some things to learn. And then they took me to Eastern Cape in 2021. I did a 1-year writing mentorship program in Eastern Cape with an organization called the Jakes Gerwel Foundation. So I was there for the entire 2021. I would travel from Joburg to Eastern Cape, Joburg to Eastern Cape. I came back in 2022, and then the manuscript was taken back to Kwela, and then I just waited the entire year in 2022. I thought I would hear something from the Kwela guys, and there was just nothing. So I'm at home and I'm frustrated. I'm waiting for these guys, and then towards the end of 2022, I just heard back from them, and they were like, "No, we love what you did. We publishing the book in 2023." And then
So this is your first attempt?
Yes,
at
yes, it
writing.
is.
Were you
Yes.
writing before you started with this manuscript? Were you writing before?
No, I wasn't.
So you were inspired by Cry the Beloved Country, Alan Payton,
Yes.
to continue to start writing, to tell your own story.
Yes, that is the book.
Yeah.
That really got me going. It did things to me I never thought were possible, because I think after that book, and then obviously I started reading a whole lot of authors after that, and then I realized something. That was my goal when I wrote this book. I think it will be my goal for my entire career. It's what I want to achieve. What I experienced in that book, and a couple of other authors, of course, it is a world in which you get so consumed, you forget about the real world. You forget about your own life. You just forget everything. You're in that moment, you're living in that book, and you never want to get out of that space. So for me, that was a very beautiful feeling. I didn't know books could do that. So Cry Beloved Country, it did that for me. So I told myself that, you know what, if I ever get a chance to tell my own story, I want to do the very same thing for other people. So when I wrote The Resurrection, that was my goal, to just write something that will consume you entirely. You forget about everything for the duration of your reading period.
Cry the Beloved Country also inspired me a lot. I actually have the book now in my bag. I was reading it last night. reading it for the 100th time, maybe. But what usually happens when I read books like that, it's a classic, Cry the Beloved Country, and books by Professor Zakes Mda. They inspire me, but they also discourage me. Because I read and I think, I can never reach this standard.
I know the feeling.
What's the point?
I know the feeling, but in my opinion, I love that. I normally say it, like I say it to my friends a lot whenever we're having these conversations. Because we take it for granted, but it is important to have role models. It's very important to have people you look at and you're like, I'll never reach that level. I believe it keeps you grounded, but at the very same time, it motivates you to keep on finding that greatness within yourself. Because one of my favorite people, I always bring up his name, Mbushi Ndabile. Like when I read what he does, he gives me that feeling. I'm like, where does he get this vocabulary? He's just too amazing, and I'm like, I will never reach that level. But because of that, every day I am reminded that there are people who are better than me out there. And I'm also reminded that I also can do better. So they push me to move forward. And I love that about them.
Yeah, that's why when I write my own books, I make sure that I don't reach that standard so that I don't discourage. But let me bring you in. It's interesting that Sihle got published at his first attempt. I mean, manuscripts are rejected. I don't know how many of my manuscripts have been rejected. You know, it's such a deflating experience. You think, man, I have done my very best here.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes and says, we don't feel this way. But at his first attempt, he got published. I wanted to ask him a question, but maybe let me bring you in.
Yeah.
There's an ongoing debate, especially about African authors, as to say, why don't we write in our own languages? Sihle Qabe ungumZulu. Manje ngiyabuza ukuthi wenze njani incwadi yokuqala ibhalwa ngesiNgisi? What is your take on that? Should we be exploring, telling our stories? I mean, it's our heritage, it's our stories. Should we be telling our stories in a foreign language, or should we tell our stories in our own languages?
Sure. It's a tricky one, because we exist in a context of, we're colonized, and the language that we're speaking now is not ours. It's not our mother or father tongue. The schooling system also is based on English medium instruction. So you're looking for a job, it must be English. You want to build a business, it must be English. So we live in that context of a foreign language. So now, when you start writing, you write according to that first or dominant language that you might...
The business language.
Yeah, that you must speak in. So, but also it depends on the goal of the author. Because, like my sister spoke about how she was born in Bophuthatswana. For me, my first language was Zulu. I was born in Bophuthatswana also.
Oh.
But Zulu. Then my father spoke Setswana.
They called you Matebele. In Bophuthatswana there were no Zulus, they were called Matebele.
Yeah, well, but
where in Bophuthatswana were you born?
A small village called Rachterspoort. It's an hour from Wombats.
It's not on the GPS.
Yeah, it's, it's another story. Yes, so,
okay.
So the point I'm making is that it will depend on the author to say, do they stick to their mother tongue in wanting to tell their story authentically? To say, I want to tell my story Kasetswana or in Zulu and so forth. But then again, you also think about what the audiences are doing or what they want. So if you speak about the market, for instance, do people actually read in Setswana? How many people read in Zulu or Ndebele and so forth and so forth? So now it takes you back to the author. So what is your point as an author? What do you want to achieve? So I was currently busy with a piece on Sabata Mukai. He's from Free State, Northern Cape, and he has about 3 novels in Setswana. And for him, that's what he wants. He wants to purely stick to Setswana, and English, of course, it does that. And then also having books which are relatable to tertiary students as opposed to primary or high school. Because certain words that Department of Education will cut out and so forth and so forth. So now it loses the authenticness of the language. So his aim is exactly that. He wants to bring that indigenous language.
Preserve the language.
So that's his take on it. But you look at Fred Khumalo, for instance, or other authors, they will do it in English. Still, it's an African story. It's a story about the township, about where we're from, but it's in English. And with the world that we're living in, it carries a much impact in the sense of you being heard by a larger audience, not just South Africa, but across Africa, the world, and so forth. So because of that, English. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't do both. Like with Sabat, it does English and
Setswana.
Yeah.
The renowned Ngugi wa Thiong'o is writing in Kikuyu
Yeah.
now, which I feel is very important because according to UNESCO, there's so many languages that are in danger of going extinct in the next 20, 30 years if nothing is done to save them. Which brings me to the point, the great Hosea Rampego has written 3 books, very remarkable for his age. I'm not sure if he has reached 40 yet. I don't want to reveal your age here.
No, not yet 40.
Yeah, but you have written and published 3 books, which is quite remarkable, especially in this age where people spend most of their time on social media. I see some incredible writing on social media, stories. People just write, and I say, why are these people not taking these ideas and these talents and utilizing them elsewhere? Because on social media, we read it today and then we forget about it. But you have written 3 books, and I'm going to start with the issue of language. Your mother tongue, as I understand, is Kilobelo,
Yeah.
which is not an official language in South Africa. It's not recognized like my language, Sindebele Sasenyagato. How important is literature in the preservation of indigenous languages? And maybe tell us about your writing journey. What motivated you to write? And also, what motivated you to write in the Queen's language? Are you planning to write or to get your work translated into Kilobelo?
Yeah. Thanks, Styles.
Tada.
Yeah, and greetings to everyone on this panel and those watching online. I don't take this moment lightly. It's really great to be here, and also to the organizers. So when you look at language, for example, it's very important that we preserve our languages. And I was born and bred in Tzaneen, a very beautiful town in Limpopo. It's arguably the cleanest in that province. So, and the greenest. So we...
Is it Tzaneen or Chaneng?
It's actually Tzaneen.
Tzaneen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the origins is that there was a particular tree or whatever that was there called Tsana,
Tsana.
whatever that they were using to...
So that's your next book there, right there.
My next book.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm conflicted in that I'm chasing commerce due to the economic conditions, and so. But I look at your writings, for example. I wish we could flip this thing and we talk about your writings.
This time will come.
Yeah. Oh, this time will come.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
This is your time.
you know, sometimes I get spellbound reading your stories. I'm like, Styles, are you really sure this story really happened? And the way he takes, like, actually your latest book, because I was in Sandton, I'm waiting for someone for a meeting, and then I'm there. This guy.
We're talking about you. Don't forget.
Okay, we'll talk about your stories sometime. So, language it's very important, and there's a lot with AI right now. Can you believe I'm fighting ChatGPT because of I write my creative thing and then I throw it on ChatGPT, and the way it comes out, Styles, it's scary.
What happens? I don't even know what is that.
ChatGPT.
I'm Bantu education.
Oh, okay. ChatGPT, it's actually this big brain, artificial intelligence. Like right now, you can go onto your cell phone with ChatGPT and say, send a poem to the girl I'm crushing on, and so on.
What?
Yeah.
The world must just end. Man.
No, with that, you press enter and then it will go like that.
Wow.
as the moon and the sun interact and what, I'm engulfed by the thoughts of you, and this is everything else.
But you can't send a poem in Kiloweri.
No, you can't.
AI.
No, you can't.
But we'll get there.
Yes, and I'm really sorry that I've been all over the place. Language is very critical, so there's serious danger for our languages. Because, for example, I speak Kilobedi, but at school I was taught Northern Sotho. So what I write at school and what I speak at home, two different languages. And I'm also from Tsanin, so I've got friends who speak Xitsonga. So I have to mix that, and then you come to Gauteng, and then the Sipitori, and it's just a mixture. Have you had kids speak right now? They mix.
There's a new language. They
they
invented a language of their
They
own.
invented a language of their own. However, Styles, I'm worried also, if you look at department, now I'm going to politicize this thing. You look at Department of Arts and Culture, the budget for arts and culture is 5 billion. And the budget for correctional services is 25 billion. That's the problem. And the budget and the budget for social development is over 300 billion.
Yeah.
So that's why we are struggling with these things. If I write in my own language, there's a chances that it will be beautiful, amazing, and all that. However, I may struggle financially because there are not many people, and also we have a culture, we have not inculcated the culture of reading. And if you are here simply because you want to make money, it's going to be really hard. Because we write because we love telling stories and we love the craft. So language is actually playing a huge role. So there ought to be some revival of some sort, some movement of sort in terms of us preserving our own languages. And I struggled actually in high school because with Northern Sotho, I'll also use words that are Kilobedi words, but they are not official words within our education system. So, however, I would like to have my books actually translated into,
that is very important.
Into all the languages, especially languages of where I come from. Because some stories, they are environmental or geographical. They make more sense.
I must say, I also find it interesting that your books deal with very, very deep societal issues. Issues of relationships, issues of faith, and issues of substance abuse, addiction, and dealing with fame. I was remarking earlier that you are a young writer, but then you decide to tackle these very difficult issues that most of us run away from. Why? What is the motivation behind it? I know that you are a pastor in training, or you have completed your training.
No, actually, I'm a son of a pastor. So my late dad was a pastor. So I'm a Christian, and so the issue of justice. If you look at Christianity in its purest form, not in its commercial form, whereby there were men who were motivated, or people who were motivated by commercial gains, who commercialized the gospel, which is a big problem. Because the church, for example, ought to be one of the pillars of society, and in terms of contributing justice and all that. But you look at the figure that Christianity is based upon, which is Jesus Christ. He was a man of justice. So if you read scriptures and all that, you'll find that out. However, I'm worried about issues in society that maybe most people are not worried about. And we have an issue of moral denigration. I don't know, you know the famous Fanon quote, every generation must, out of relative opacity, find its own mission, betray that mission, or fulfill it, so to paraphrase. So I'm worried about the moral decadence. And there are so many people who are gifted, with my book, Gifted, Hunted, and Haunted. But people are not getting opportunities. Do you know why we have high levels of crime? It's because people don't know who they are. It talks about the issue of identity. And right now, with economic disparities that and economic challenges that we find ourselves in. It's really bad. So I'm trying to fight for that. I'm trying to give a voice to those who are gifted, who deserve opportunities, and to that the powers that be, and also society as like must actually come together to help these people, because it's going to be bad. And with every generation, there's moral decadence and moral denigration. So we are going down. Hence, I raise those particular issues.
So you are using literature to correct some of society's ills, which is quite important. So if this book is translated into the 10 other official languages in this country to reach even more people. Sihle, take us through your journey. I mean, people write manuscripts and they get rejected. At the first attempt, you are published.
Yes.
Take us through the journey of writing. How were you writing? Were you writing longhand? Did you have a typewriter or laptop?
That would be interesting.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that it's fiction.
Yes, it is.
I'm a non-fiction writer because I believe that writing fiction is hard. But then you sit in there with an empty page. You must fill 200 empty pages with something that you just make up from your head. What?
Yes.
Yeah, take us through that journey. I get asked a lot by people. Almost in a week, there'll be 5 people who contact me via social media. Hey, Styles, how's it, man? Hey, I want to write a book, man. What can I do? My answer is always the same. What do you want? Just start writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a very different advice I give to people who want to be authors. Because if somebody came up to me and said they want to write, I would just say, don't.
Wow.
No, it's really not easy. It's really not easy writing a book, so don't do it. But then I always figure that if somebody really wants to do it, I mean, they wouldn't listen to me anyway. Why would you care what I have to say? So I feel like the people who write books or who should write books are the people who don't care what you say. They don't care what you think of them. Like you can imagine coming from Fosler Race. So this is around, let's say, around 2017, right? I really have it in my head that I want to write a novel. It has to be fiction, and it has to be beautiful. That's what I told myself. Obviously, when you discuss such issues with your friends, you're like, I'm thinking of writing a book. It's a joke. So for a while, I was a joke.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
So when's it shy?
Yeah. Yeah, but so that's why I'm saying I tell people don't. But if they want to write, they wouldn't care what I say. They would just go for it. When I write, no, I do not have a typewriter.
Okay.
I don't know how to use it. It just always seems so interesting when you see it on TV, but
Yeah.
I could never.
You should have one.
No, I'm scared. So I use a laptop.
I'm going to interrupt you there and ask you to, I see you have marked some pages where you want to give us a piece of your literary genius. So maybe read a passage there so that people can tell what is it that this gentleman from Enrut
is all about.
Is all about. What is he saying in this book? Because this is also an opportunity, colleagues, to introduce our work to the rest of the world. I was telling someone that, hey man, I've written books, but when I go to the restaurant, nobody recognizes who I am. They don't know me. But somebody who has published the Kwaito song, will be mobbed by people. Maybe I'm just wasting my time. Please read for us there. People recognize you in the street or say, hey, go on, hunted and wanted. I'm judging them.
Yeah, but that's because we don't have that culture
of reading.
Yeah, in America, you publish a book at 12 midday.
Yeah.
By evening, you are a bestseller.
I'm going to America, man.
No, you gotta go. Get on the flight.
Okay. Let me take this one. So I'll just start here. So I'll start with inside the club, the music was so loud that Victor felt his bowels tremble. The tables were filled with ice buckets and ashtrays. The cleaners were extra diligent with empty bottles. It was a trick to motivate patronage. Victor was familiar with it. The men were young, their jeans were saggy and exposed the top of their underwear. The girls were younger still, their shorts were cut high to expose their buttocks and inner thighs. Fana was talking to a bartender, asking about this Joseph who hated his name. Victor was looking at a girl in denim cutoffs. Her butt cheeks wiggled when she danced. Fana came back. He's upstairs, baby bro, let's go. He led the way. The bouncers next to the stairs did not frisk them either. They made their way to the second level. Up here, the music was soulful and relaxing. The bartenders dressed formally. The men kept their pants on their waists, and the ladies wore their dresses long and hair even longer. Their tables were spotless. They were covered with tablecloths of cognac brands. The glasses and bottles on top of them complemented the deco. Fana led Victor to the balcony. They looked down at the outside parking lot. It had filled up in the last couple of minutes. A short man came to them shuffling briskly. When he came closer, Victor saw that he had a hard face and red bulging eyes. Fana, he said, you've come to see how a road club's run. The man chortled to himself. No, Joseph, I just want you to meet someone, Fana said. Brajo looked at Victor. He's Hector the Don's younger brother, name's Victor. He's the new Don now, the way I say it. So you can stop bothering me about buying the club now, okay? He's the man to talk to. What was this? Victor had thought that Fana was the one interested in buying the club. And it really does look like him, Joe said, shifting Victor's mind from Fana. Judging by his face, the words left a bitter taste in Joseph's mouth. Will he be selling the club? Brajo asked Fana. I don't know, Joseph. He speaks, you know. You could ask him yourself. Young man, Brajo said to Victor, I've been telling this fool here to sell me the Zulu club for about a year now. You look like a smart kid. I'm sure he'll do the right thing. What game was Fana playing? Victor had no time to guess, not with those eyes on him. Why would you want to buy the club? It's not doing well. It can do better than this one once I work my magic on it. It has the best location for this kind of business. It's in the center of everything. Give it a revamp and voila. Fana was smiling. Victor focused on Brajo and said, the club's not for sale. See what I've been telling you? The club's not for sale, Josephine. Fana added. Brajo moved his tongue around his mouth and said, everything's for sale to the right customer.
Including Hansa. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
Immaculate, can you indulge us there? Can you terrorize us?
I actually love the first chapter of the book, which is titled The Gates of Prison, because this is where the story begins. A 16-year-old Immaculate trying to find a father whom he longed for so many years. And it goes as this. After approximately a decade of yearning and wandering, I finally undertook my journey to come face to face with the man that attempted to love me. Attempted to love me. It was a cold June 16, 1999, when my then boyfriend, Lebogang, and I, accompanied by his friend Nico, hitchhiked from our village, Ramosadi, to Rooigrond Maximum Prison in Mafikeng, Northwest Province. There was no public transport designated for the Rooigrond route at that time. It was an 18-kilometer journey, and I was about to face my biggest fear. I had been wanting to meet the man whose thoughts occupied my mind almost every day for years. The reception at the facility, not a smooth one. I was almost denied entry because I did not have an identity document.
You were 16.
I was 16 at the time. But my then boyfriend came to my rescue. He produced his student card, and the three of us were granted entry into the place that housed some of the worst criminals in South Africa. I want to then jump to a paragraph When the man I care for walked through the gates from his prison cell, he looked around to find out who visited him. He did not recognize me, but I did because of the pictures. I screamed, "Papa, Papa." As I laid my eyes on the man,
Do you want to take a break?
no, I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
I just relived the moment.
Mm.
Tears were flowing down my cheeks and people at the facility wondered. My father, who was still filling in the register, glanced to my direction and continued to comply with the prison procedures. He did not show any emotions then. As I eagerly waited on the other side, he went to a small table that had a prison official just before the exit door towards the lawn. There were only 2 inmates in the queue to register for their visit. The registration was quick, and in less than 5 minutes, he had concluded the process. I also want to jump to this because I want to give those that have joined us in the panel the scenario of how things were in prison there. So because he was already settled on the sitting area with manicured lawn outside the prison walls, it was time for daddy and daughter to bond. Lebogang and Nico, who took a bench next to us, seemed almost non-existent, as the world seemed to belong to Johannes Kebalipile Buikanyo and his daughter, Immaculate Tsepiso Tleindi. Despite having gone through a lot with me, being exposed to prison for the first time and all, I neither afforded Lebogang and Nico the courtesy to introduce them to Papa.
Okay.
I think this one, let me just conclude here. Once he then realized who I was, he said to me, "Don't cry, baby. Daddy is here." He said, "I am never going to leave you again. I love you."
Wow. I'm already seeing a film there.
Yeah, his story is incredible.
Dinkwete will start with the script writing, and the director is here. You wanted to come in there?
Yeah, it's thank you for sharing. Is your book fiction or non-fiction?
It's non-fiction.
Oh, okay.
So it's a story about her
Straight.
looking for her dad. And I think if you read the book, she says here that the father did not recognize her when
Yeah.
they first met in prison. And she recognized him from the pictures
The picture.
that
Yeah.
she had seen at home. Was it your first ever meeting with your dad?
No, I last saw him before I visited him in prison, I had seen him 3 times in my entire life.
And you were still very young.
Was about 5 years.
5
So the
years.
last time I saw him was 5 years. I was 5 years. But because I had changed and grown and he still remained the same, I was able to recognize him in prison. And the fact that I said, "I am Immaculate Tleindi," Wana Olga Tsokolo Tleindi, then he started to have a memory of me being around. Because the last time he left me, he came and gave me a boss doll. There was this, I'm not sure whether it's
Boss doll, yeah, Mkhutshwane.
yes, for because I was sick. And then he dropped me at school and he said, "I'll come and pick you up." He never came, and that was in 1991, I think. And I've never seen him there.
Very interesting story. It reminds me of the case of many political prisoners during the apartheid era who left home and left very young kids. And when they came back home, these children were adults with families, some had passed on. Anyway, Very powerful book, by the way. I said I read it in 2 days. And I must say, Immaculate, reading this book cost me a lot of bottles of beverages. Hosea, let's tantalize the readers. Which one are you reading from? Because you have so many books.
Oh yeah, I'm reading from A Yellow Bone with a Black Heart.
My
Okay.
favorite.
It's your favorite book?
You know that's how I got so.
Be safe. And Shanique, an African, 3 hot models who had been in my company all night long. I left South Africa as a king and my reign continued across the seas. I had a feeling the wolves were kept in the hills and women in my bed. While Shanique put on the music, Lila took off my jacket and Bianca threw me on the bed on my back. Expensive nails and a massage on a spinal cord stimulated a nerve reaction under my left knee. The king was now a servant as I let the trio titillate and sublimate my pleasures. Their potency in the world of pleasure was equivalent to Barcelona's Messi, Suarez and Neymar, or Sundown's Castro, Billiard and Dolly in a full throttle assault on the green. The occurrences of Room 1010 at the Grand Casino shall remain classified, and should I be hauled before any court of law, I would plead the fifth. After all, didn't they say, whatever happens in Vegas?
Wow, man, I already see a Mzansi magic movie there. Yeah, the writing style reminds me of the 50s drum era. Right, as very racy, descriptive. There was this gentleman, may his soul rest in peace, Todd Machigiza.
Yeah.
He wrote a very famous book, Chocolates for My Wife. So he had a writing style called Machiges. Because they said when this guy was writing, it was like he was making music. So when I'm listening to you reading there, it's like you are reciting poetry. Hey, Sihle and Hosea, you write about modern popular culture or what happens in what young people do, clubs, taverns. When I read that you are from KwaZulu Natal, Emakhaya, I thought you were going to be writing about witchcraft, cattle theft, chieftaincy, wrangles. What motivated you? Where does the story come from? Is it something that was reality and then you decided, I'm going to fictionalize this? Because most of the time they say fiction is motivated by reality.
Yes, yes. It is often motivated by reality, of course. But the story, okay, I wouldn't say it's entirely fiction. There were so many elements to it that were motivated by my own father. So that part of the story, the influence that the father has in the story, Bantu Zulu, most of that comes from my own father, Mdudu Zimbabwe, my father. It was a way for me, when I wrote this book, because he passed on in 2014, so we didn't have the best of relationships, and a part of that has always haunted me. And I felt like he didn't try enough, he didn't do his best.
Immaculate is dealing with that in a non-fiction way. You are dealing with it the other way. But it is your story. It is part of who you are, it's your heritage.
So obviously, after a while, you grow up and then you start to revisit those things and you look at them. So when I wrote The Resurrection, it was when I was feeling like, because before I used to feel like he didn't try hard enough. When I wrote this book, it was when I started feeling like, maybe I also didn't try hard enough myself. Maybe he wasn't the best father, but maybe I was not the best son. So I just wrote this for us, that element that is reality. And then when it comes to the clubs, the nightlife, I love it. It is what we
This man
see.
is a pastor, but he's writing
But-
about
And it's so eloquent.
dangerous pastor.
A very dangerous person. So that part, it just comes from what we see. It is the world I see every day. I see these people, I see these clubs. Back then, a couple of years ago, I would visit them from time to time. So I'll just chill there, drink, hang out. And there's just something so, because we don't want to admit it that much, but there's just something so captivating about that life. There's certain poetry to it, how everyone just moves in sync with the music, they're having their drinks, and everything is just vibes. So I love that.
Now, we are talking about alternative ways of telling our stories. You have all written books, published books.
Yes.
Does it end there? There are so many people young people who are watching and listening to us now. In South Africa, books don't sell as much as they should. Young people are exploring new ways of telling stories. There's this thing called a podcast.
Yes.
Some are doing TikTok. Tell us, Immaculate, does your story end here with this book? Are you exploring other alternatives?
Yes, I am, but for now I cannot. But it might be in the near future be watched at.
So we wanted to do a television documentary, drama?
For now, I wanted it to be turned into theatre production.
Theatre production. Wow, that's interesting.
So.
But you grew up.
Yes, we're still in talks with so I cannot talk much about.
But what is interesting, you grew up in Bophuthatswana. People then had this very powerful medium called radio. 8 o'clock, 10 to 8, it was time for the radio drama. All families converged, they brought families together. Should we be going there now with our stories?
It's one of the platforms that can happen. I grew up on those stories.
Matuwadifala.
Well, I was on the Nguni side.
Okay.
Cause
yeah,
also Swati. Because remember, I grew up with my maternal grandparents, who was Umkulu Umzulu, and then my grandmother was Umswati.
Okay.
So we grew up on that. But yes, 100% I think is one of the options. I remember Maisha Jenkins at some point brought poetry at SAFM, and it came just after. I remember going to the studios. They were recording a radio.
There's also a recording on SAFM every day.
Yeah, so definitely is one of the platforms, especially because of that mass appeal in terms of it being a public broadcaster. So if you can take a story, one of the stories here, it's a script already.
I mean, we have audio books now.
Yeah. And the script is there, the story is there, the characters are there, the themes are there, they're relevant. Then you bring it to radio, it can work. Because as much as radio is the whole theater of the mind, it works in that context, can work on stage, can work on screen. So a story can be flexible, depends on who's got it and who's gonna cook it up nicely. But yeah, there's many platforms now with technology opening up.
Wabe, are we gonna see a film of the resurrection, or are you exploring other alternatives? Is the book going to be? Immaculate is talking about the theatre, which I never even thought about.
That is quite interesting.
Yeah.
That is quite interesting. Currently, I do not know, but I'm crossing my fingers. We will have a movie someday, because I remember you did mention
Yes.
something of the sort in City Press.
Yeah, in my review, yeah.
Thank you so much. Litnet said the same thing as well. This would really be lovely for TV. So, most people who have read the book, whether they were reviews or just friends, people I bump to and hang out with, everybody tells me the same thing. They always tell me, this really has a potential to be on TV. It would really be lovely to see it on screen. So I'm crossing my fingers that does happen someday.
Hosea, you have written 3 books already. Are you rich?
No, Styles, if I was rich, you and I would be in the Emirates having lunch this time. So,
because that is the question that young people are asking. I overheard some guys, they saw me buying a lotto ticket. And
it's very interesting. Like, for example, I'm sorry to talk about you, but Styles, you have an allegiance to the masses who are disenfranchised, you know, from your writing and all that you do.
Remember, we talk about you today. Are you rich? Have you made money from this?
No.
Should young, because
No.
writing is a very hard process.
No, I'm saying the government should give us the money, and our people need to give us the money. Let me tell you, Styles, I'm gonna politicize things anyway. The economic conditions of our people are very bad to such a thing. Styles, all of us sitting here, if we're in a certain economy, will be really huge. I mean, you go to the Gabriel Garcia Marquez of this world, your George R.R. Martin, Dean Koontz. You Google these guys, they've made millions and billions actually from their literary offerings. While here, we don't have that. And remember what, part of the rules of apartheid, the policies, you should not teach Africans to read or write. And the quality of our lives actually are determined by that. Can you believe, like, Styles, I live in Pretoria, the capital city of this country. You will be embarrassed to see men actually urinating on the street at corner Pretoria and Van der Walt.
What causes that?
It's
Is it a lack of public toilets or moral decay?
Moral decay, among other things, even littering. But because here's the thing about South Africans, one of these days we need to talk about our identity. What does it mean to be a South African? And we don't have a sense of pride as South Africans.
We are not a nation. I want to challenge you on something. You said the economic conditions of our people are very bad.
Yeah.
So you were referring to the fact that people maybe don't buy books in the same volume that they should be. But you are writing now in yellow bone with a black heart. And in the resurrection, Sihle is writing also about people converging in a club and consuming drinks. I see people buy a bottle of whiskey for $1,000 or $500 or more. But a book costs a fraction of that, 250, 300. So is it a question of affordability, or is it a question of culture, a culture of non-reading?
Yes, it's the latter. It's a question of culture. So, for example, I started reading books when I was 21.
That's too late, man.
It's very late. That's why even in my writing styles, there are levels I want to get to as far as writing is concerned. But my mind can't comprehend it because of my foundation. For example, I battle to write a story from third person perspective. I have to always use first person so that I'm in the story and I can express myself better.
Well, that's your style. I think it will come with time.
Yes.
All of us have our own
different
styles.
We need to go back to the issue of inculcating a culture of reading. We don't have campaigns with the Ministry of Education and so on. And I tell you, Styles, people, young men and women at university, they got NSFAS money last weekend on Friday. Do you know where they took the money to? They were bashes, and they also take it to gambling sites because.
So at the bash, they discuss your book.
No, they don't.
They don't discuss books.
No, it's like they don't even do that because. So Styles, in one of the stories that you wrote, I think it was a book.
You like talking about me. This is about
black
you.
text. No.
Yeah, black
the
text.
thing is, I want to.
Yeah, black text.
On black text.
Beden or Ubuntu.
Yes. And you were telling of a scenario of how your family was the arrival point for everyone. You see, that's Ubuntu. And right now, guess what? And we are heavily, he will talk about culture and how we've evolved and how we are heavily influenced by maybe our colonizers and all that. There's a day Styles, I was cooking, I didn't have an onion. And I couldn't ask.
What's not a year?
Yes, and I couldn't ask the neighbor.
Why?
Because we don't have that relationship. I cannot live in this
Wolves.
Yeah, I
Wolf
don't
wolves
even know the
are-
name of my neighbor. That's how bad it is. I just greet them, and we live in this gated environment and so on. And how our culture, and you need to fight, we need to fight, you know, through literature and so on. But if somebody, you go to your village, you know, or wherever you grew up, even though there will be thugs and all that, they won't touch you because of who you are and because of your involvement and all that. So we have challenges as Africans to really keep ourselves, but modernity, commerce, and we copy a lot of things that we watch on TV. Right now, styles, every woman is
Western junk.
and every woman it's currently they have to show, maybe they have to strip naked on social media and all that. Maybe someone will say, no, it's our culture, it's the new what we call expression and all these other things. And I'm conflicted as a Christian and also as a modern guy and all that. It's just crazy. Yeah.
We have people who are watching this
Yeah.
live, and they want to pose very hard questions.
Can I just jump in quickly and
Yeah.
we'll go to the audiences. I just want to follow up on what he's saying on the question around you know, the reading culture and so forth. So 2 points on my side. True, the reading culture must be built if we really want commercial viability with our books or longevity in terms
You
of...
say women buy books more than men do. Men buy other things.
That's
Sure.
That's true.
So I would say households, like at our homes, the culture must be built. Like typically, if you go to, you know, any township household, bookshelf, it's foreign. It's not a thing that you will find typically in most black households. So things like that, having a bookshelf just for the child growing up to see, that reading culture must be there. Or you as a parent, you read, you go maybe sit under a tree and you read a newspaper or you read a book. Your child sees you doing that. But okay, what's this big thing about my father always reading, or my mother was reading, or my cousin and so forth? So if you can create that, as opposed to maybe looking at schools, because schools, that's their main purpose, to create that reading and write culture. But I think in our households, that's also very, very much important. In the communities, it's important. Growing up, I used to be shy, taking out a book in a text, because there's this thing already. Who are you to read?
Like, we cannot afford.
But if we
Another
have
feeling.
that, but when now living in Midrand, you go into the Gautrain, it's culture. People actually read in the Gautrain or on the phone. It's normal. It's not like a thing or and so forth. So I think on that basis, that needs to happen. On the author side, in terms of us trying to find some financial sustainability with the writings, I think we have to be innovative, because the traditional route will be to you do a book and you want to go to a bookstore.
And people
So
must
that-
stop asking for free copies.
And they're
Not even asking, they demand free
Yes.
copies from authors.
So bookstores can only do so much. There are other platforms that can be used. Social media is there. You can create a relationship with an organization where you sell in mass, where now you do like a bulk order instead of just doing unit, but like 20 books, 100 books into a specific organization. You do like a partnership or a discounted something, so that you allow yourself to still have a bit of money, and you also allow the books to have mass impact.
Okay. We need to take questions from the audience. And also I see we have 7 minutes remaining. Are we able to go an extra 10 minutes and finish at 12:40, because we started a bit late? Andile?
Okay, we have, the first question is from Jonah Pauli from Facebook, and it's directed to Immaculate Cindy. He's asking, in your experience of writing and reporting on the struggles, what challenges and achievement on GBV activism, what are some of the brightest examples which you give hope for future of the country, and how did you incorporate into your novels?
Can we take maybe 2-3 questions?
Okay, the following one is directed to Hosea, is also from John Paoli. What advice would you give to aspirant writers who are attempting to write a book which incorporates their own lived experiences and large issues which affect society today?
Another one.
Okay, and Ndogozo Maphalala Mtambo, also directed to Hosea. What inspired you to write this book? I'm not sure which one.
All of them.
Yeah. Was it your personal journey?
Is there a question for Sihle so that they can all respond?
No, but this one is directed to all the writers.
Okay. So
Are there
Sihle will
any
take that
specific
one.
themes or messages the book should convey
When you are
when
writing
you're
a book?
writing a book?
Okay. Sihle, let's start with the last one.
Okay.
Are there any messages that should be conveyed when you
When
are
you're
writing a book? What message do you want to convey with the resurrection? Let's start there.
Okay. No, I just wanted to talk, obviously, about my own life to a certain extent. As I did say, it was my own way to reconcile with my own father. Like, it was a way to forgive and to move on. But I think, in general, I don't think the point of a book should be to just convey a certain message, unless obviously that is your purpose as the author. Like, I would just think the point of a book is to be a book. It is a work of art, so it should just be creative, artistic, and be fun. But obviously, if there's something you want to get across, you will do that. You'll get that across, and obviously nobody can tell you if you're right or wrong or how to express yourself. But I don't think primarily a person should focus on that unless you're teaching perhaps a certain subject in which you are qualified to do that.
Your message was reconciliation and forgiveness
Yes.
in the resurrection.
Yes.
Okay. Immaculate, the challenges that you encountered in telling the story?
It was mostly about trying to get facts. As much as it is my story, I still had to do research and getting to have people telling me, like, I had, if you read my book, I had to get documents from the High Court when my father was sentenced. I had to interview people because when he died in 2004, but he died in Mangaung, the famous Mangaung prison.
Maximum prison.
Which is now famous because of Pesta and Nandipa. But just trying to source out that information as accurate as possible and not getting there because you'll be told it was before we could have the backups and stuff. And the challenge is that my mom was born in 1956. To this day, she still cries. Because being one of the main characters in the books, she is not able to forget, and she has not forgiven herself. Even last month, she cried. There was something on Skim Sam where Lizzie was, the mother-in-law was doing something, and then she called and she literally cried and said, she is better, she's working. I was subjected to that by members of the community, my own family, and stuff. So it was very challenging, but also just to tell my story the way I want, because there's a chapter where I'm talking about the nudes agenda, where I got a backlash because now people start to lose focus on what I'm trying to tell the story. What is the story all about? Moving away from the killer's shadow. Yes, he is a killer, but also the fact that the family was not also forthcoming, even though it was of public knowledge. But generally, just being victimized and people nullifying your story to the narrative that they want to create. But I'm still in this book, was able to talk about the gender-based violence, because I had suffered that myself. My mom has suffered that, and I have so many people that I have, that I know that have suffered that. But we say we are living in a society where women are constantly forced to look over their shoulders, and not even women. Now it's even worse. It's boys, it's men. So we live in. The South Africa has become a very unsafe place. So those are the challenges, but the message that I was trying to relay is that we have no choice but to survive what we are thrown at.
Just to add to the question from the audience, did you find that writing the book healed you in a way? Or did writing the book re-traumatize you?
Partially, because during the writing, I was constantly crying. I relived the moment. It's been 2 years now. Sometimes I don't read my book. If you did not ask me to read a chapter, I was not going to read it, because I still relive those moments. It traumatized me, and I don't think I have healed to a point where I hope that putting my story, documenting my story, would have healed me. It has brought different aspects, and I'm still taking each day as it comes, especially that I'm raising kids. It's very important, because what I have experienced, my 4 kids, because I have 4 kids from 4 different men, they might also get to a point where they are dealing with rejection. So instead of breaking the generational curse, it seems like I'm battling because of what I have currently. So it's a bit it's a bit dramatic. Yeah.
Thanks for writing the book. I think a lot of people will learn from it. It's a very powerful book, and I think the letters that you exchanged with your father, he was a very loving man from what I read, but very contrasting personality as well. Hosea, you seem to be the most popular author here. There are 2 questions directed at you.
Not even, but so for me, the inspiration for writing the books, first of all, I'm inspired by the fact that I have little talent. So
Says who?
Says me. So I consider it as a gift from God, and I feel the justice that I can do is to utilize the gift that God has given me. So that's why I write. And then secondly, with my books, they are very different. There I'm talking about serious issues, and with the Yellow Bone, I'm actually playing. I'm just expressing myself.
That's talent, isn't it?
Yes. So
Yes,
I'm expressing myself, you know, and so with Wait to Be Seated, it was inspired by a heartbreak. Gorgeous girl dumps me.
3 months.
Yes, you remember. So gorgeous girl dumps me, and I decide to get commercial value out of a heartbreak. And with Gifted, I'm haunted by the fact that there are so many gifted people that are not given opportunities, and that the world somehow misunderstands people who are gifted. So I bring that element, and then here I'm teaching a lesson while I'm also entertaining, to say that you can live in the fast lane and have all the things that the world brings at you, and then if you mishandle and styles, you and I played soccer together, and when you give me that diagonal ball and I don't really control it properly like Zidane, guess what happens? I'll have to chase the ball. So that's what happens. Life sometimes gives you a pass, and some passes are awkward. How do you control the awkward pass? And most people, their first touch becomes so bad that the rest of their lives they're chasing the ball, and it's bad. So I write to bring out, you know, all sorts of emotions. And I need to make a point. One of my mentees, who has a PhD, said to me that the problem in South Africa is that when you raise issues, people expect you to bring solutions. He says sometimes we just need to just end it raising the issues, and the solutions may come, because if we are, some people are scared to raise issues because they don't have solutions. So let's raise all these issues that we have, and through our writing and so on. Can I jump onto the other
Sure.
question?
Let's try to keep it brief. We about to.
Yeah, this one will be very brief. People who are interested, what's the advice that we can give people? Simple. Read and write every day. That's the thing. You have to read and write every day. You must have a relationship with words, because I personally, because of the standards that I've set for myself and the levels I desire, I feel that I need to read and write every day so that I can become better. 10,000 hours that you need to put into any craft. So, yeah, people just need to read and write, and also research about the industry, so that you know after you are done with your manuscript, where is it that you can, and also get coaching. Let someone coach you, someone who has written a book like Styles, Immaculate, Sike. So let's come together. He's a critic who also has pointers, because he has read so many books. So readers are leaders, and readers can lead us in writing.
For those who don't know, Hosea is also a motivational speaker, so you can hear. I'm not a big fan of motivational speakers, but I think
I'm a retired motivational.
yeah. Roland?
Speaking of motivation, here's a question for you.
Yeah. So do we still have questions from
Just one.
online?
And it's directed
Okay.
to you.
Okay.
Oh, so 2 questions for him.
Okay.
Okay, let's start with the question. Maybe it's the same.
This one is from Faith Murumbi and Lerato Mbizo. That's just one question. To Mr. Lucas Lidwaba, in your experience, what are some of the effective ways to publish and subsequently market your books?
Okay.
Then my question is, speaking of motivation,
I'm just a facilitator.
he's been wanting.
Yeah.
What motivates you to write your books?
What motivates me to write my books?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been reading all my life. Before I went to school, I was reading. My home was full of books. My parents never went to school. My father went up to standard 6. My mother never went to school. But my father was a subscriber, Reader's Digest. And he was always buying those books. Wildlife, short stories. The magazine would be delivered by the postman. So I'll wait. When the day the magazine is delivered, I'll take it, it's wrapped in a plastic, and I'll wait for my father to come back very late at night and give it to him. And then he'll say, okay, you can open it. So I've been in love with literature all my life. But what really motivated me to write the books that I've written, if you look at the books I've written, somebody was telling me yesterday that I write depressing books, because the books deal with serious societal issues. But I used to go to bookshops. When I walk in there, see all these books about Africans, about Africa, about South Africa. And those books were not written by Africans or South Africans. So I said, no, my writing cannot end in a short newspaper article. I need to do more. Because books are timeless. 200 years from now, people will be asking questions. Say, but where were these African people during this period? Why were they not writing? And I'm happy that today we are sitting here with all these books that are written by South Africans about South African issues. And that is my motivation. So what was the other question from the audience?
marketing.
Yeah, the marketing.
Okay.
How do you market?
I once interviewed a very interesting man, Mr. Letlapa Mphahlele. He's the author of a very powerful book called Child of This Soil, My Life as a Freedom Fighter. So he said, when I'm writing, I'm an author. But after writing, I'm a marketer, I'm a businessman. So he's always carrying his books in the boot of his car, in his bag. Now we have social media, but also how we present ourselves to people, to society, should also be a tool that markets our work. Because I write about serious societal issues, books, and journalism. I must always try to improve my knowledge and get involved in forums that discuss those issues. So writing doesn't end when you publish the book and you have a book launch and people come and have free wine and harass you for signatures and free copies. But once you have written a book, I think it's a lifetime connection to you. So you never stop marketing the book. If you are invited, last year I drove from Polokwane to Lusikisiki, the Eastern Cape, more than 1,000 kilometers in my small buggy. I traveled for 3 days, sleeping in different areas. It was a very small book festival in a very small town. But I said, I'm going there because I've been invited. People must read my book. How are people going to know about my book if I don't go out there? So there's no event that's big or small. Everywhere, take your book along and always respect the event. In having said so, can I ask my colleagues just a few minutes to wrap up? Immaculate?
I just wanted to add in terms of marketing. I was able to sell 1,000 copies individually, so. And the audience must understand that you'll have those that say, I don't read. Oh, hi, Pumakim. You will be subjected to different responses. So it's very important that you use your social media platforms, you carry your books, but most importantly, convince the reader why they should buy your book. So if I was able to sell 1,000 copies without any assistance, it means you can also do that.
Sorry, Immaculate, you sold 1,000 books in what period of time? 1 year?
6 months.
6 months?
Yes.
Wow.
In 6 months. I even used to go to the High Court. As they are stressed about their case there, I'm there by the steps, say, I know you're stressed, maybe things did not go, can you just... And some people will just even tell you, for the fact that you came here and you are a black person, and you don't care who says what, I'm just going to support you. Whether they read that book or not is beyond me. The other thing is that I approached several institutions. I managed to sell about 250 copies to the Department of Arts and Culture in the Northwest. So sometimes you don't have to wait for opportunities. We go and knock and say, this is my book. I'm about to deliver to another department. They want 1,000 copies.
Wow.
So, and they are putting them in libraries. So that's where then the culture of reading starts. And it's just that in other provinces, I never got the support. But the support that I got from the Northwest, where I come from, it then talks to, you spoke when you started to say, you are able to talk about the surroundings. People relate more to the subject. Or you were talking about the issue of language. And in the Northwest, people will know where's Mafeking. Most of them will know where's Ramazat. So it then says, oh, I want to know this person. I really, so you use those platforms, you don't take them for granted. If it means going to Department of Justice and say, do we have a library? Can I sell you 50 copies? You have nothing to lose. That's what I've done, and it worked for me.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, they say the beautiful have no enemy. The beautiful and the innocent have no enemy but time. So in wrapping up, I'm gonna give you each a minute to give us closing remarks. And then, because I'm seated here at the end of the table, I'll have the final word.
Thank you so much, Lucas, and everyone. And thanks to everyone as well for tuning in. I think I really loved what Immaculate said. I'm really feeling it. Like I wish I could just repeat everything she said. But basically, if I were to add anything, I would just say you need to believe in your own craft. If you're creative, just believe in what you're doing. Believe in your own craft, believe in your own self, and don't ever let people tell you what you can do, what you cannot do, or how you should do what you're doing. Just do your own thing the way you want to do it. Somebody out there is just like you, and they will relate exactly to you as you are. So that's just that on my part.
Osia?
I hope Immaculate still has my banking details. Thanks so much for this platform and an opportunity. We don't take it lightly. So one of Dr. Cornel West says, you may not change the world, but you have to leave it a little better than you found it.
Wow.
So hopefully with our crafts, and also a message to everyone that make sure that you make your smaller and a contribution to making the world a better place. Thank you, sir.
Ramtau.
Start small. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to be embarrassed. Like how she's saying, like go in there, knock on those doors. And I think also, like how you said, the relationship with words. If you want to be a writer, the words must be there, like for breakfast, for lunch, for snacks, everything. But also, the starting small part is very important. Like on my side, I will write books one day, but you're doing small little columns on the newspapers and so forth. So start small, with a poem, a small column, something, so that you build from there, and then you eventually have a book at the end of the day. So yeah, start small, keep pushing, tell your story.
Talking of knocking on doors, Roland Simpi Mutau has been knocking on many doors because he loves literature. He writes book reviews, he interviews authors. He hasn't waited for someone to come to him and say, can you do this for us? He goes out and does it and knocks on doors. So thank you for your love for literature. Immaculate, you still want to say something in 30 seconds?
Don't seek validation from anyone. If you believe you have what it takes to do what you want to do, do it. You will never ever satisfy the world. You will have those that are in favor of your work or your craft, and you will have those that will literally want to tear you apart. But don't take it. Don't seek validation, but just deliver.
Thank you so much. For those who are tuning in from elsewhere, thank you so much for giving us your time and for listening to our discussion here. This event was made possible by a very generous grant from the National Arts Council. So we really like to thank the National Arts Council for coming through, and we hope that they continue to extend this kind of support to the literary space. Like Hosea said earlier, we need government support to reignite the love for literature in our communities. And thanks also to Insight Education Foundation for making this event possible, for hosting us, and colleagues, authors, fellow authors, Waandishi, thank you so much for taking the trouble to come through here and sharing your thoughts. I hope you found this more empowering, fruitful, and stimulating. And with those few words from me, the facilitator and the host, Styles Lucas Ledwaba, reporting live from Midrand, Johannesburg. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.